As Jing Li focused, he realized that the markings weren't random. Some symbols were repeated, and others seemed to glow faintly when he looked at them. Slowly, a pattern began to form in his mind. It was a sequence or riddle that needed to be solved. He repeated the steps aloud, as if to make sure he understood: first the sun, then the moon, then the star. Suddenly, the door began to rumble, and the markings shifted. Jing Li quickly pressed the symbols in the order he had discovered, and with a loud grinding sound, the stone door slowly opened. Behind it, the treasure was revealed. But it wasn't just a chest of gold or jewels like he had expected. Instead, there was an ancient scroll covered in a golden aura. The system explained this is the Scroll of the Ancients, a powerful artifact that holds knowledge lost to time. It will unlock new abilities for you. Jing Li stepped forward, carefully taking the scroll. As soon as his hands touched it, he felt a surge of energy, like his mind was expanding. The knowledge in the scroll flooded into his thought strategies, hidden techniques, and a deeper understanding of the system he was now part of. But just as he was about to leave with his newfound treasure, he heard voices approaching. It was clear that someone had been following him. Jing Li's heart raced as he quickly rolled up the scroll and hid it. He had to get out of there fast. Jing Li barely had time to breathe after securing the Scroll of the Ancients. He tucked it away carefully and quickly moved toward the exit of the temple. The voices he had heard earlier were getting closer, and it didn't take long for him to spot the figures of two men standing at the entrance, blocking his way. They were dressed in dark clothing, looking like mercenaries. Jing Li's heart raced. I knew someone was following me, he thought. The system's voice cut through his panic. Activate the hidden abilities you unlocked with the scroll. You can escape this. The knowledge from the scroll surged in his mind. A series of complex strategies and techniques filled his thoughts, and he understood them immediately, as if they had always been there. Without thinking, Jing Li moved swiftly, his body reacting before his mind fully processed the plan. He ducked behind a pillar, using the shadows to hide from the mercenaries. The system whispered, use the illusion step. It will make you invisible for a short time. Jing Li followed the system's advice, his movements slow and calculated. He felt a wave of energy, and suddenly the mercenaries looked around confused, unable to spot him. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. He took advantage of the confusion, slipping past them and making his way toward the temple's exit. His heart pounded in his chest as he neared safety. Once outside, Jing Li took a moment to gather himself. He was out of immediate danger, but he knew this was far from over. The scroll had given him new abilities, but it had also drawn even more attention to him. Enemies were closing in, and he had no idea who else was out there hunting for the same treasures. Jing Li finally managed to escape the temple, but he couldn't shake the feeling that danger was still looming. He quickly made his way through the dense forest surrounding the ruins, using the cover of the trees to hide his movements. The system warned him enemies are closing in. They know you have the scroll. You must move quickly. Jing Li's heart pounded in his chest. The mercenaries from earlier were not the only ones after the treasure. There were other groups, more powerful, who would stop at nothing to get what he had found. I can't let them catch me, he thought, pushing his legs to move faster. As he ran, the system guided him through hidden paths and shortcuts. Use the stealth mode. It will make your movements quieter and less detectable. Jing Li activated the ability, his footsteps now silent on the forest floor. He felt the world around him slow down, and the danger seemed to fade for a moment. But just as he thought he had escaped, a familiar voice echoed through the trees. We know you're here, Jing Li. You can't hide forever. The voice was cold, filled with authority. Jing Li froze. He recognized it. It was a woman's voice, sharp and commanding, someone he had encountered briefly before. The system's voice grew urgent. She is dangerous. Move fast or she will trap you. Jing Li didn't waste any more time. He pushed forward, hoping the stealth mode would keep him hidden just a little longer. But the tension was rising. He knew the woman was close, and she wasn't alone. Jing Li's mind raced. I can't fight them all. I need to think of something fast. Jing Li's heart raced as he heard the voice grow louder. He had to act fast. The woman was close, and she wasn't alone. The stealth mode was helping, but he knew it wouldn't keep him hidden for long. He needed to get out of the forest and find a safe place before she and her team could catch him. The system spoke again, its voice calm yet urgent. You need to move quickly. The enemy is too strong. A direct confrontation would be unwise. Jing Li's mind raced. He thought of the shortcut through the old tunnels he had passed earlier. They were hidden under a nearby cliff and would lead him out of the forest without being seen. But the journey was risky. He wasn't sure if he could make it before they found him. Without hesitation, he made his decision. He turned sharply and began running toward the cliff, his feet pounding against the dirt. The system continued to guide him, pointing out the safest route. You are almost there. Keep moving. The exit is ahead. As Jing Li ran, he could hear the faint sounds of footsteps behind him, getting closer. His breathing became shallow and sweat trickled down his face. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep up this pace. I need to reach those tunnels, he thought, pushing himself harder. Finally, he reached the cliff and found the entrance to the tunnels. He slipped inside just as the sounds of pursuit grew louder. He breathed a sigh of relief, but he knew this was only a temporary escape. The real danger had just begun. Jing Li ran deeper into the tunnels, the cool air helping him catch his breath after the sprint through the forest. He knew he wasn't safe yet. The system warned him the tunnels may offer temporary shelter, but they are not without danger. Move quickly and stay alert. The narrow walls of the tunnel echoed with every step he took, making it harder to stay hidden. Jing Li focused, trying to listen for any signs of pursuit. He didn't hear anyone yet, but the sense of urgency kept him moving forward. I need to get to the city. Only there will I be able to regroup and figure out my next move, he thought. The system continued to guide him through the maze-like tunnels. There is a hidden exit up ahead. It leads to an abandoned warehouse just outside the city limits. You'll be able to rest there and plan your next steps. Jing Li nodded silently, grateful for the system's guidance. As he neared the exit, he heard something, a soft click of boots against stone. He froze, listening closely. It was faint, but he was sure someone was following him. The woman's voice from earlier echoed in his mind. She's still looking for me. Just as he reached the exit, the sound grew louder, and Jing Li pushed through the tunnel's exit with everything he had. The cool night air greeted him as he stumbled out into the open. Ahead, he could see the outline of an old warehouse. His legs were burning, but he forced himself to keep moving. The moment he entered the warehouse, he collapsed against the wall, exhausted. His heart was still pounding from the chase, and his mind was racing. They're not giving up. I have to figure out what comes next. I can't run forever. Jing Li took a moment to catch his breath, leaning against the cold wall of the warehouse. His mind was still racing, and the exhaustion from the chase weighed heavily on him. The pursuit wasn't over, but at least for now, he had found temporary shelter. He couldn't afford to stay still for long, though. The enemies that were after him wouldn't rest. The system spoke again, its voice calm yet urgent. You have evaded them for now, but you must prepare for what comes next. They will continue to track you. Rest, but stay alert. Jing Li closed his eyes, trying to focus on his next steps. The phoenix feather and the scroll of the ancients had already changed his life, but now he was in deeper than ever before. More powerful enemies were closing in, and it seemed like every move he made brought more danger. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from outside the warehouse, snapping him out of his thoughts. Jing Li's eyes widened in alarm. They found me? Already. He quickly moved into the shadows, trying to stay hidden. His hand instinctively went to the scroll he had tucked away earlier, as if to reassure himself that he still had it. The system warned, they are close. Use the environment to your advantage. You must move carefully. Jing Li took a deep breath, calming his nerves. He couldn't afford to panic. He had survived this long, and he wasn't about to be caught now. Slowly and silently, he crept toward the back of the warehouse, hoping to find a way out before they discovered his hiding place. Jing Li stayed silent, crouching behind the stack of crates in the warehouse, listening carefully. His heart raced as the footsteps grew closer. They must have followed me here, he thought, his breath shallow. He couldn't risk being spotted now. The last thing he needed was a confrontation. The system's voice was clear. They're not just mercenaries. These people are well-trained. Be careful. Jing Li felt the tension rising, but he focused on keeping his movements quiet. He knew the area well enough to find a way out. He had to move fast. There was a door at the far end of the warehouse, and it seemed like his only chance for escape. He couldn't waste time. The footsteps outside stopped for a moment. Jing Li's heart skipped a beat, but then he heard the voices, two men talking. They were searching the area, carefully checking every corner. One of them said, "He's here somewhere. We'll find him." Jing Li clenched his fists. I have to move now, or I'm done for. He quickly glanced around and noticed a narrow gap between two crates that led to a small alleyway outside. It wasn't much, but it was his best chance. Taking a deep breath, he darted towards the gap, moving with all the speed and silence he could muster. Just as he reached the opening, one of the men turned sharply, catching a glimpse of movement. "There," he shouted, and in that instant, Jingli bolted through the gap, hearing the sound of footsteps chasing after him. He didn't look back. He sprinted down the alley, the cool night air hitting his face as he tried to outrun his pursuers. The system urged him forward. There's a safe house nearby. Head there.